Hello and welcome. This is Jeff Cassman with Catholic Men of America, and another fascinating conversation we're going to have with a Catholic man in the business world that was doing lots of interesting things. Got a great backstory too. Todd, welcome to the call.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's great to be here with you.
So everybody, I'm talking with Todd Dailey, coming out of the great state of Indiana. And just recently, there's been a lot of success for the Indiana football team. It's been a long time in coming, and wow, I bet that's been exciting for you Hoosiers, huh?
It has. It's been really fun to watch, see them perform on the biggest stage for sure.
A lot of people are talking about that. So why don't we get back to our topics here? You're a Catholic guy.
Mm-hmm.
You got a day job. You got some neat things going on in the background. We want to cover all those bases. So tell us a little bit, where you got started, your family, your faith, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I will just, very briefly go back. I was born and raised in north central Indiana, just about an hour northeast of Indianapolis, small town, Marion, Indiana, parish, St. Paul's. I was born and raised a cradle Catholic there. Candidly, I got away from my faith for a good part of kind of latter high school, college, and post-college years. I did meet my wife at Liberty Mutual Insurance, where I was employed right out of college. We have three young boys now, 5, 9, and 12, that keep us busy and a great source of joy for us, for sure. But yeah, I would say probably the past 10, I would say 8 to 10 years, I've really kind of gotten back into the faith. It was really the birth of my oldest that I would say triggered that for me, at least that process. And it was certainly a long process to get back to where I am, knowing I still have a long way to go. But at the highest level, I was also a Purdue undergrad. And then so Purdue undergrad and then a graduate degree from Indiana as well. So I played both sides of that Purdue Indiana rivalry, to go back to some of the sports talk from the beginning. But those are some of the high points.
So I got to ask you some Indiana trivia. Probably
Please.
one of the most famous movies involving Indiana would be Hoosiers, right?
Yes.
The great film with Gene Hackman. You don't even have to be a basketball fan to just find that movie to be amazing. So do you remember the real town that film is based on?
I believe it is, gosh, we drive by it on the way to Cincinnati. It starts with an M. I want to say it's Milan, maybe.
Yep.
Is that correct? Milan? Yeah.
That's
so there
right.
you go.
That's right. And that was the 1954 Indiana State champions. Do you remember the real name of that lead character, the kid that they drag off the farm, who kind of becomes the reason for their success?
Jimmy, is it Jimmy Chitwood? Is that?
Yeah, great.
Yeah. I've seen it a handful of times, but it's been several years. So
no,
clear.
Very good. And that's not just for trivia's sake. I wanted to follow up on a post you made on LinkedIn that I thought was great. You've got a son that's playing basketball, and you posted about a story involving his basketball that has a lot of applications in life and in business. Do you remember the post, and can you tell us about it?
I do. I still remember that very vividly. My son had left his expensive indoor basketball at our local athletic facility. It's kind of a big gym where a lot of youth sports teams play, basketball in particular. And he came out without the basketball, and I asked him to go in and check and see if he could find it. And he went in and he came out maybe 90 seconds later and said, I couldn't find it. And this is a huge gym. And I said, okay. I said, well, briefly asked him where he looked, and clearly it was a very quick, he just kind of went in there and glanced around. I said, well, why don't you go back in and take another pass and see? And he goes back in and he takes a little bit more of a pass, seemingly maybe walked a quick lap through, comes back out, still no basketball. And I said, buddy, this is a pretty expensive basketball. Why don't you go back in and ask somebody really take your time and just be 100% sure it's not in there. Well, he came back out about 5 minutes later with the basketball. And, we just proceeded to talk about, um, you know, as you mentioned, many applications to life there of taking shortcuts. And, a lot of times you can put forth 60, 70, 80% of the effort and get zero results, right? It's not until that last 5 to 10% where you can find the meat of the benefits that you're going to get from the effort that you're putting in. And so I think for him and for myself, a great reminder as well, just to always put your best foot forward, and know that just because you haven't seen the results yet, it doesn't mean it's not worth continuing to go down a particular path.
It's a great application, not just in sports, but in school, of course. You kind of got to get across the line, and in business, 80% oftentimes just won't cut it. And of course, in our faith, we're reminded by that famous statement by St. Paul about finishing the race, right? 80% towards heaven isn't heaven, So great thoughts. Thank you for sharing that. I love on LinkedIn when we can get something that's not business AI slop, but comes from real life and is meaningful. That's a nice treat.
It is harder and harder to find these days, with all of the AI, as you mentioned, and everyone kind of playing into certain algorithms to get real life stuff is difficult.
Indeed. So tell us a little bit about your day job. Where do you work? What do you do? What problems do you all solve?
Yeah, certainly. So just a little bit of background, brief background. I mentioned Liberty Mutual Insurance. I was there where I met my wife. I was there for 11 years in IT, playing management and then a director role most recently before I left there, and came downstream to the agency side. So for the last almost 8 years, I have been at Insurance Management Group here in North Central Indiana, play a president and COO role here. And so that is providing support to our finance functions, our HR functions, IT, our service teams. Yeah, I would say those are the bulk of the areas that I kind of deal in on a regular basis here. We provide property and casualty insurance as well as benefits insurance for businesses and individuals alike. So, yeah, I'll pause there.
Yeah, that's great. So since we mentioned AI, let's talk about it. How are you seeing AI work in the insurance business, specifically with Insurance Management Group?
Yeah, well, I can tell you it's certainly the hot topic of conversation as it is in most industries right now. And I would tell you at Insurance Management Group, we're trying to proceed thoughtfully. I think that's one of the biggest things. We are, as a technology professional for the better part of the last 20 years, I have found a lot of success in making sure that you're starting with the problem. And whatever those problems might be, efficiency problems, effectiveness problems, and then you look for tools and technologies that may be able to help solve those or solve certain business problems for you. And so that's really kind of through the lens through which we're trying to use AI, is just to solve real world problems that we're experiencing at the agency. I think there are, in some cases, both within the insurance industry and elsewhere, where you have people starting with AI and looking for problems to solve it. The technology itself is kind of becoming the master. And I think that's where it gets a little bit dangerous. And we're trying to, as I mentioned, proceed as thoughtfully as we can, really from a human dignity perspective and all of that, ensure we're preserving and preserving that in all cases, and ensure that this technology addition is at the benefit of our employees, and helping them be able to do more for their clients and for the team, as opposed to at their expense.
If I go to insurancemanagementgroup.com, like on many websites, there's a little option for me to click and start a conversation. I did that, and I did not get a rapid response. So I'm assuming you've still got real humans dealing with that. Um, how do you consider using AI in that kind of application? Where AI would be instant. It would probably give me 3 or 4 options and then take me down a decision tree and all that sort of stuff, collecting information about me, keeping me on the website. A lot of those things are valuable metrics that people, marketers and business development people like. And I'm going to guess you're still using human beings. So am I right about that? And what are your thoughts about that one little aspect of the customer experience?
You are right about that, and I love that real-time test that you just did. We do have human beings behind the scenes there that are answering that, and I think, from a problem perspective, again, I look at technology as a way to supplement what our team can do and what our team can provide. For example, a similar, before I come back to that one, is after-hours phone support, right? If we don't have a live person there, could we leverage AI during that time to make sure our clients are getting questions answered, or at least we're capturing their information so the burden's not on them to call back during business hours, right? So I think things like that where we're supplementing the experience, and in that particular case, could we absolutely use AI to maybe get a more immediate response, a more timely response until a human being has a chance to jump in, and provide a more holistic support? I think that's, again, something we would absolutely be open to and looking into. I think the challenge is when that becomes the primary, right? And we're looking to basically cut employees or cut staff because AI can do that job instead. And so, I think there are, to be perfectly transparent, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, AI is never going to replace any employee in any industry. I think there's a reality of automation that's going to create a lot of pressure on companies to be able to leverage it to sustain operations. I think the biggest thing that we're also trying to focus on as we do introduce technology in different ways is to make sure we're retraining our staff to be able to do other things to add value, right? So there are as an insurance agency, we're a distributor, right? We're kind of a middleman in a sorts where we're helping businesses and individuals understand and navigate protecting their most important assets, right? And so there are different ways that we can add value to that process. And so even if we have technology coming in, kind of like it does today, right? Technology does a lot more than it did 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but there are still human beings offering significant value. And so for us, continuing to be innovative and look for other ways that we can add value to our clients will ensure that people continue to have opportunities if those new innovations are things they want to be a part of.
I know this is a little bit off the conversation, but AI is so interesting because it creates a lot of strong feelings on the human side.
Mm.
Some people are techno optimists, like me. I kind of want to see what technology is doing, see how it's progressing, and I enjoy that experience. Some people are very much the opposite, right? And then you've got introverts that maybe don't they want information, but they don't want that human interaction, right?
Mhm.
And it seems to me that this is an opportunity in the insurance business to kind of give people an opportunity to say, hey, do you want to talk to, Joni, our AI bot, and see how that goes? Or do you want to wait for a human, or do you want to leave a message? I'm not trying to tell you your business, but I
Mhm.
just think it's an interesting opportunity where we are with all of this to see how people want to be served, especially after hours, right?
Yeah.
When the bot maybe could give me a lot of information, could have a conversation with me about options and decision making and that sort of thing. Although compliance people probably wouldn't like that, right?
Yeah, certainly there's a limitation in terms of what information they would be able to discuss, and you would want to protect that. But it's a great point. I think it does offer flexibility, and not just to give an example of that, we even see that between phone calls and texts. Or if you're an introverted person, or more of maybe your certain generations are more inclined to text because it's not that on the phone live kind of interaction with a human being. It's more, kind of behind the scenes. And for introverts or others, that might be a more comfortable way to communicate. So I think you're right. That's another great, I think, mindset and principle to use. AI could be an option, again, to maximize the client experience if that's more along the lines of what they're looking for, as opposed to purely an efficiency play.
The insurance business seems to be a pretty good one to be in, pretty healthy, stable, as long as the federal government is not, messing around with key aspects of your business. I would imagine that the industry is growing each year. Are you hiring, generally speaking? Are you hiring people, or are you stable, or are you letting people go?
Yeah, we have continued to hire. I would say I would definitely, we're about 62 employees, and generally there's, for whatever reason, we have I would say, a pretty low turnover rate, but we're backfilling those. And then, in most cases, I would say we're adding, one or two people a year, based on the growth that we're experiencing and the business goals that we have to continue to grow. We've actually even introduced two new roles completely into the organization in the past 18 months. And so certainly we're continuing to look to provide opportunities.
A lot of the CEOs that I talk to complain about the difficulty of finding people who are qualified and willing to work and don't have an addiction problem, that sort of thing. Do you have a problem with those same issues, or are you able to find good employees and keep them?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate along these lines, I would say. We have found some really good people, and in some cases, we have had to leverage recruiters to find those people in more creative ways than to just maybe put a posting up on Indeed or a local site or through a local organization. Sometimes it does require a little more. And a lot of times that's just the cycle of the market and when people are looking and not looking. We were actually just, the other day looking at anniversaries of people that have joined the company, and we have a few months of the year where zero people, in an organization of 60, where zero people joined. So it speaks to the seasonality of it, and just ensuring kind of the timing's right for what you're looking for and when others are looking. So certainly at times it can be more difficult than others.
That's well, great. Obviously, you're doing something well with the culture of the company. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and let's dive into it here. You've got something else going on the side that you've started, like a lot of men that I've talked to, their passions, interests, side hustles, startups that they're working on. You've got something really neat going on with a lot of aspects. Let's talk about it. Tell me about Eternize.
Yeah, so Eternize is it's coming up on 8 years in the making later this year. It's been something that I mentioned, I got back into my faith, kind of started that journey with the birth of my oldest. And, as I got back in there, after being off for 15 years, I had a lot of challenges and a lot of struggles keeping faith top of mind in today's world. We live in an extremely distracting world. There's a lot of competition for our attention, and kudos to the digital marketing and social media companies. They've done a remarkable job figuring out how to capture and maintain our attention at unprecedented levels. And it was, unfortunately for me, I really struggled with that. And so through, I won't get into too much depth there, but just through some discernment, the idea was planted on my heart to, at the time, and this is again almost 8 years ago, develop a 21st century crucifix, right? The crucifix that we've all been wearing and ancestors have been wearing for hundreds and hundreds of years, that really hasn't changed other than maybe some form factor. But I just felt like, and part of this is me being a technology guy and believing that there is quite a bit of good in technology if used the right way, is how can we have a crucifix that has some functionality to help us, protect us and or just help us keep our faith top of mind throughout the day. So that was the driver. I call this my own personal bell tower. sorts, but it basically has haptic or vibration capabilities, and it's just something that helps keep my head in the game spiritually throughout the day amidst all the distractions and all the things to do. I would go through some wonderful immersive experiences. God would provide an abundance of inspiration in different events throughout my kind of comeback to the faith, and I would just find it fading. Right, it's that 1 to 2 day, 1 to 2 week, depending on and sometimes 1 to 2 hours. You're back in the vortex, and this has really helped me with that.
I love the reference to the bell tower,
Mm.
right? So in the old days, people lived around the community church or the monastery, and the bell would ring for mass, or the bell would ring to tell the monks to come in out of the fields to pray that hour of the divine office, and so forth. But also the people kind of built their lives around that. The average person didn't have an easy way to keep time, and so they would everybody knew what bell's going to ring, and that signifies things, and it kind of kept the life of the church at their heart, and so that's really great that you've done that. So before we dive into the product a little bit more, let's talk about the practicality of starting a business.
Mhm.
Everybody has ideas.
Mhm.
Some people have good ideas, but there's still just a lot of ideas, right? And
Mhm.
as owners of ideas, we tend to think that those ideas are valuable, but
Mhm.
the hard stuff is actually implementing it.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about, it's 8 years, a little bit about that process where you've gone from idea to actually developing and building the business, and whatever you want to share with us, raising money, recruiting talent, that part of it.
Yeah, it's a great point. And for those that have ideas and they stay ideas, there's a part of me now that kind of tips my cap to you, because it's a very long, difficult process that has opportunity costs, particularly if you're trying to juggle a full-time job. It tests you in all the ways. And I honestly, to get to this point, I credit a lot of the people in my community who have stepped up. God has put so many people along the path of this journey to ensure that I'm, continuing to persevere. It's just not anything I could have ever done on my own. And so I would just kind of give a nod to, again, God putting people in and around, and them answering that call and being willing to step in and contribute in different ways, some as advisors, some financially. But you are 1000% right. There's an element here of ignorance is bliss, and that not knowing what you're getting into and not knowing how much work is going to be is really the only way that you would embark on a journey like this. I could probably say, if someone had laid out what the last 8 years have been and put that in front of me when I started this journey, I don't know that I'd be here. I don't know that I would have embarked upon it. But for us, it's been a product design process, which there's just so many different iterations and so many things that can go wrong. And the same thing on the software side, we have an app that goes with it that has some other functionality, predominantly to program and customize and personalize this. There again, so many different elements of that, and communication, and it has been a journey. You mentioned fundraising. There was a point where I was almost 7 years into the journey, and we were kind of stalling out from a funding perspective and trying to find people who believed in what we were doing and where we were going. It was challenging. And so I would say the struggle is real.
So you've got product development, and you have a real product that you've had to manufacture, you've got fundraising, you've got people, all of these things that are central to every operation. In terms of the product development part of it, since you actually are manufacturing something, are you doing that all domestically, or do you have some dependence on foreign providers?
dependence on foreign providers at this point, and unfortunately, in talking with several others kind of prior to embarking upon this, that is a little bit of a necessary evil, at least to get off the ground and get going. So that's where we're at in the journey. We certainly have some support stateside to do certain things, but we definitely have some international partners.
A lot of times, people who are not familiar with the manufacturing process don't realize how difficult it is in the United States, especially to start something and to do something at a relatively low volume. If you're doing 1,000 widgets a day or 10,000 widgets a day, then all of a sudden domestic facilities and processes and domestic wages and the neighbor we want to hire, they become viable. But when you want to do a batch of a dozen or 100, right? I'm sure you've discovered it's just not feasible. And until you've got the extra millions, to produce and just have products sitting around, you really don't have any option other than to look overseas.
Yeah, it's a great point, because I think a lot of people, when you initially talk about that, their first thought is margin. Oh, they're doing this for margin. They're doing this to maximize margin. And to your point, it just isn't that at all. It's just a matter of just the feasibility of getting something off the ground and to market is really, really cost prohibitive when you're manufacturing very, very low quantities, or there's just an incredible amount of research and development that needs put in up front. It's really about that, especially for early stage startups. Not that for other companies and entities it isn't about margin, but it isn't always.
And it's oftentimes the difference is 5x or 10x at these low volumes. So it's a make or break sort of thing. Have you been affected by any of the tariff stuff?
We have a little bit. It hasn't been anything that has, I would say, materially impacted, our ability to continue, but certainly there have been some added fees and costs associated with that for sure.
I appreciate you taking us over a wide range of conversations. What is your biggest challenge right now with this business?
I think the biggest challenge is getting people an opportunity to really understand the value proposition. And, especially in today's world, a lot of messages are conveyed digitally, right? And so to try and convey this concept digitally, it's difficult, right? I think when you have this on and you get that gentle nudge, that rich vibration right in the proximity of your heart, you immediately get it. And that personal bell tower and it all kind of clicks. But in advance of that, trying to, from a cold perspective, not knowing much about Eternize or what this is, it can be quickly perceived as, oh, it's a crucifix that buzzes, to get your attention. It can be, I think, marginalized or transactionalized a little bit. And so really giving people the understanding of how this can and has, we've been in beta for well over a year now, has transformed people and brought them comfort in some of the most vulnerable, difficult moments of their days, to give people an opportunity to just how those gentle nudges compound and can transform them spiritually and then more broadly in their lives is something that we're really trying to figure out how to do digitally, knowing that's going to ultimately be the way to reach a large number of people and help a large number of people, again, kind of keep their head in the game spiritually in the world we live in.
You've got a very attractive website, myeternize.com. Can people order the product? Is it live now?
Yeah, absolutely is live. We have inventory at this point. And people can 100% order.
Wonderful. So Catholic men that are listening, want to support this great project, make sure to check that out on the web. I'll give you the last word. Anything else that you'd like to share with us today?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this. I would say, we'll do a discount for anyone that wants to participate in this or partake in this. We'll just do a discount of CMA 25, Catholic Men of America 25, CMA 25. We'll get them 25% off. At this point, we're early on in the journey and looking for people who are passionate about this sort of thing and wanting to be a part of the journey and help give us feedback and those sorts of things as well.
Great. We'll make sure that we put that in the show notes, and the links will all be below the video here on YouTube so that it's easy for everybody to get. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll also post links to your company if people want to connect with you professionally, especially those that are in the Indianapolis area. And we'll share your LinkedIn profile as well. Todd, thank you for being with us. Congratulations on your success so far, and hopefully many years of success in front of you.
Jeff, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
God bless you. Peace be with you.
Take care.